Welcome back to the Retention Edge podcast. I've got Ben Zettler with me. Ben, why don't you give the audience a quick introduction on yourself, man?
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on. I'm the founder of Zettler Digital. We are a digital marketing and e-commerce agency. We support folks across three core areas of service, building their websites, optimizing their customer acquisition strategies with advertising, and retention-focused work on email and SMS. We are Klaviyo Elite Partners, which is something we're super proud of, and Shopify Premier Partners. We've been at this for over a decade now.
And how did you get into the space in the first place?
I didn't have a job after college, and I decided I needed to do something with it. Or with my time rather. And I took all the money that I got as gifts for my bar mitzvah, and I decided to start a sunglasses business. And I set out on this journey to figure out, well, how am I going to produce product? Where am I going to build a website? How am I going to sell what I'm trying to create? I stumbled upon Shopify. This is back in June of 2013. And there were some competitors in the space at the time, but Shopify still seemed like a no-brainer. And I always say that I got very lucky because Shopify has only grown tremendously since then. The sunglasses company was store number 41,000 or so on the platform. And as I was going through that process, friend of a friend needs help with a website. This person needs help with maybe some email marketing. This person needs help setting up their social media. And they knew I had done that with the sunglasses business. And it just snowballed over time. I eventually did work a full-time job running digital marketing and e-commerce for a sports memorabilia company, and was there for about 5.5 years. And then after leaving there, I launched the agency full-time, where I'd already been doing consulting for a number of years, and it's kind of been off and running ever since.
And who are your ideal customers, I guess, that you guys are working with today now?
For the most part, we work with brands that are doing anywhere from $1 to $15 or $20 million a year, some above, some below, where we kind of vary the engagement structure. But for folks that are bringing us on to either build their storefronts or optimize their storefronts, or retaining us for monthly marketing management services, that's a typical business size where we'll operate. And it's usually folks that either they have small but mighty teams and they need some outsourced help, or maybe they are a larger org, but they need a particular expertise in a certain area that they're looking for support with. And that can be companies that really span the gamut. I mean, we work with folks that sell coffee, workout supplements, watches, luxury dresses, and couture fashion, handbags, apparel, gardening equipment, you name it. We've kind of done it.
Well, so I guess to jump into kind of the one of the bigger topics in e-commerce right now, which is like, Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of coming up. Uh, I guess starting off there, what are some of the big focuses that brands should have at this moment, early September, mid-September, uh, with with Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of coming up? What should they be looking to set up, have prepared, and everything like that heading into kind of November?
If brands aren't talking about it already, now is certainly the time to plan everything. When I say everything, I mean, what sales might you run? What new inventory might you be launching? Which, if that hasn't already happened in the months preceding, then they're not going to be able to launch anything that new. But are there bundling opportunities potentially to add value to what folks are buying, but not necessarily cut so severely into your margin, which is something that I know a lot of brands are talking about this year, especially.
Uh-huh.
But really, it's planning. It's, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? How can you prep email campaigns? How can you prep advertising ahead of time? I always say for Black Friday, and this will be my 12th, I think, if I'm counting right. If you plan ahead and control the things that you can control before the big day, or now the big weekend, or maybe you could call it the big month comes.
Big
Um,
multiple months
yeah,
at this
that
point.
that'll give you the ability to be nimble in the moment, or to have extra hands on customer service, or whatever it is that comes up. There's really no reason now, with the tools that are available where you should ever be, scheduling something at midnight on Thursday or Wednesday night, or doing things like that, because you can schedule changes to email flows. You can schedule email campaigns. You can schedule changes to sign up forms. You can schedule advertising. You can schedule changes on your site. All of that should ultimately be predetermined, and the what of what you should do should be determined now.
Yeah.
And actually putting all that into play should happen in October. And by the first week of November, if you're not done, then uh, to be honest, I feel sorry for you.
Well, I think like the eternal agency dilemma is that like clients always end up wanting to do things last minute, right? And we work with a ton of agencies and they're always so frustrated because the client comes to them beginning of November and they're like, I want 8 things done right ahead of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever it is. How would you tell like agency owners or people working at agencies, how would you help them out with convincing their clients to get all of this done earlier and getting that all in place versus having all their clients come into them last minute for a million different changes.
Yeah. Well, having done it for a decent amount of time, um, dare I say it feels a little bit routine for us. But the thing I would encourage agencies to do is not be afraid necessarily of being a little bit strict as far as what you need or what you expect from the client. That way you can help deliver what they ultimately need when the time comes. So we have our account managers start to have Black Friday conversations in August typically.
Yeah.
And where September becomes, I'd say, more, we'll call it real planning sessions. And then, like I said, earlier, the month of October becomes the time where we're actually doing key implementation. Like we're building out flow content that's specifically meant for Black Friday during that time. We're building out campaigns that are specifically meant for Black Friday during that time. We're thinking about website, not necessarily changes, because we don't necessarily want to make changes during that time, but any updates, optimizations that we're considering, especially for a brand that's expecting a high volume on Black Friday, we're
Uh-huh.
finishing now. Um, that becomes really important. If you kind of lay that groundwork, I suppose, um, clients will respect that. They will, or they should respect the fact that you are trying to be as forward thinking as possible, so
Uh-huh.
that when the inevitable, oh hey, it's Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and say, oh, you know what, we didn't do this. Can we put a campaign together to feature this item on Saturday of Black Friday weekend? Then you have some flexibility to be able to do things like that,
No.
because you know that your foundation is laid. And that's something that becomes super super important. Because you have to recognize also on the other side of the coin that you want to be nimble. You want to make sure that you're being as good of a partner as you can be to the clients that you're working with, but obviously within reason too. We build into our contracts the expectation that there's going to be a little bit of a higher volume at that time of year relative to others. For most brands,
Right.
not all, um, but we're prepared for that going into.
And like you said, you've been a part of 13 or so Black Fridays and Cyber Mondays at this point. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you continually are seeing your clients making, or maybe not even your clients, but other businesses that are making that are kind of, I guess, easily avoidable? And what recommendations would you have to kind of fix those issues?
Easily avoidable is confusing your customer. I see brands do it year after year, and it never ceases to amaze me, like how often that happens. How often brands are putting in front of their customers offers that are simply confusing. That in order to claim this discount, you got to do this thing and then go to this place, but you can't stack discount codes, and they can't do this thing and then that. And it's just too many rules, too many fictitious rules, frankly, things that just don't make any sense and just make it harder for people to finish their purchase without reaching out to customer service. Don't do that, because you're just digging yourself a hole at the end of the day. You're asking for people to reach out to you unnecessarily. And that there's just no point in doing that. So make any offer that you're putting out there, any type of sale or discount or anything like that, as clear as possible. Make it easy to understand. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have, everything is X% off. That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
But curate the experience on your website appropriately, make people understand the value of either the discounts or the bundling or the free gifts with purchase or whatever it might be, but don't make it hard for people to claim those offers, because then it makes it less likely they're actually going to do it.
Uh, with Black Friday, Cyber Monday coming up, obviously all these different brands are going to be acquiring a whole bunch of new customers, a whole bunch of new people visiting their sites, maybe buying, maybe not buying, whatever it is. What are some of the most effective retention strategies that you're seeing brands implementing today that will help these brands not just have that customer come by once and buy once, but repeatedly buy from that brand in the future? And obviously there's a difference between a couch brand and a t-shirt brand, but generally speaking, I guess focusing on the brands that would rely a little bit more on customer retention. Um, I guess what are some of the best practices that you see brands implementing right now to retain those customers longer term after their first purchase or even after visiting their site for the first time? What are brands doing right now that are working? What's not working as effectively, maybe as it used to? Again, since you have all this experience throughout the years on Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah, one thing that I think has become table stakes over the last 18 months or so is the collection of zero party data at the point of sign up when someone arrives on the site, and then you're prompting them either with in most cases, a discount offer, but some incentive on some level to sign up for an email list, an SMS list. That becomes really important and something that brands should be leveraging throughout the year. But there's also like Black Friday centric tweaks I'd say that brands can make. Um, Simple things like, do you want early access to our Black Friday sale? Like a simple question like that, and helping to uh, curate a list of potential recipients is good to identify users that are likely to engage, even if they don't actually buy during Black Friday. You can then still use that list to try
Uh,
to reach those specific users, particularly those maybe that have never bought from you before. And so we're fans of stuff like that. Obviously, also leveraging whatever data and information you have about past purchasers or other browse related information for users that are coming to the site for the first time and what actions they've taken on the site. Um, but I would say never shy away from asking people what they want. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a pop up either. That could be specifically in email campaigns and asking
yeah.
people very candid questions and try to get actual responses from them in an email, which side thing, helps from a deliverability perspective, but can help you just kind of actually connect with customers in a different way if you're prepared to do that. Like you send out an email campaign to these users that haven't bought before and ask them why they haven't bought and actually get real responses and have a real human have an understanding of what they're responding with, and then take action based on that, whether that means how you're marketing the products, if there are specific rebuttals that people have to ultimately purchasing and then changing the way that you market those products specifically, or if it's something that they're looking for that you don't have that you can then go and build and create and then offer to them.
And what are some of the best practices that you see with regards to brands' loyalty programs heading into Black Friday and Cyber Monday too? Do you think they should be trying new things at this time? Do you think that keep on stick with exactly what's working? Like, what's your take on kind of how brands should enforce their loyalty programs?
In the last couple of years, we have done more work in migrating brands off of loyalty programs than
Hmm.
starting them on loyalty programs. My perspective on that has started to shift a little bit, very specifically because of what Klaviyo has done this year with the introduction of their services track, their services offering, specifically Customer Hub. Um, Customer Hub is a widget that sits on your site that takes over the account experience for users. They click on the little account icon in the corner, and then a slide out, comes into focus that has order history, that has coupons that have been specifically assigned to you stored there, that can also integrate loyalty information from third party apps that you're using for loyalty.
Uh-huh.
Currently, the one that integrates with Customer Hub is Smile, and so like the idea that Now, a little bit more front and center, you can surface rewards and loyalty related information and have a better understanding of how you can earn points, how you can claim rewards offers. That significantly enhances the rewards experience. And that's generally the biggest disconnect is brands don't, at least that I see, for the most part, they do not put an emphasis on their loyalty programs in their marketing, which is why we've ultimately offboarded more brands than onboarded them because it ends up being something where you're just eroding margin for folks that probably would have bought from you anyway. But if it becomes something that's more front and center focused in your marketing, then it has the ability potentially to retain on a more effective level users that maybe they wouldn't have bought, or maybe they wouldn't have bought with as much frequency as the super users or the super shoppers, we'll call them.
Hmm.
So that's the stuff that I'm thinking about when it comes to loyalty, referrals, rewards. There's for brands that let's say don't have a program, but that they're interested, if they have a product or set of products that are either consumables or a wide range of SKUs, like you know loyalty. I generally don't know how well it's going to really work for brands that sell a fairly low number of SKUs, um, but if they kind of check the boxes, then and they don't have anything in place right now, I mean, it's fairly easy to get something in place. Again, if the same for brands that already have it, but if you can integrate the introduction of a rewards program into your marketing over the course of the next 2 months, great. By all means, go for it. Um,
So you're
if it
not
works in.
anti loyalty program. You just want to make sure that brands are focusing on the loyalty program.
Yeah, not anti loyalty. I am pro actually marketing your loyalty program.
And so you had all these brands come to you and they wanted to migrate off their loyalty programs. Like why do you think you weren't either able to like convince them to keep going with it, but then like make these adjustments to focus more heavily on it? Like where was the disconnect there with those clients? Because you work with them so closely, right?
I think many of them we were the ones encouraging that they get rid of them. Specifically because, they'll say things to us like, yeah, we have a rewards program. We don't really do much with it. It's just kind of there and nobody really does anything. And it's like they're already telling the story already. And so we're kind of the ones that say, well, have you thought about not having one and like
Uh-huh.
just kind of getting rid of it because you're literally just eroding margin for users that would have bought from you anyway. And a lot of them have taken us up on that. I think in cases where we as an agency and as a service provider to brands that we work with have a little bit more say or a little bit more control, like if we're maybe working with them across a number of different areas, then we can have a little bit more impact on how rewards and loyalty are integrated across different channels. Um, but if we make those suggestions and brands say to us, we don't really have the resources to do that, or no, we don't really want to do that in our social posts, or we don't really want to surface it much in this area or whatever, then it's kind of an uphill battle that isn't going to make sense for them. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you kind of alluded to it, that the first sort of step is giving brands guidance on, well, what can you do to better surface your loyalty program inside of your marketing? How can you structure it in a way that is value add to the consumer, but not just totally cutting into the revenue that you're meant to be ultimately making? Are points or dollar equivalents? Are they appropriate relative to the actions that you're giving users the ability to take? All of those things, like we have a lot of those conversations first. Um, and again, I think now more than ever before, if brands are in that mindset that, hey, we either want a loyalty program or we have one and we want to just kind of think about it a little bit more strategically. Um, if they're willing to do those things, then they're much more likely to have success, and that's where we encourage kind of pushing forward with it.
Why do you think that like so many brands aren't willing to focus as heavily on retention as they do on customer acquisition? Personally see it all the time with the clients that we work with. Like
The
yeah,
$50,000 a month Facebook ad spend, but, "Oh, why
yeah,
did my Klaviyo bill go up $20?"
exactly,
Crowd.
exactly. Yeah. It's like, where do you think that disconnect is? Because it's like I have these conversations, I don't know, multiple times a week, probably sometimes multiple times a day, depending on the week. And, it's always a difficult conversation to have, but the way we see retention is it's like the building blocks of the business where it gives you this optionality to essentially, even if you want to focus on customer acquisition, it's giving you the ability to be more risk on with the types of ads that you can run because you have this base of revenue kind of coming in from your attention. But like, what do you think it is? Like, what's the logic behind those brands
Not that this is logical, but I think what
or
I think
emotional? Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just, eh, it's kinda simple, even though it's not simple. It's we're running advertising, and if we don't run advertising, then there's gonna be no ads. We're running email marketing, let's say, and if we change a little bit of what we're doing, we can still run email marketing and save a little money. Like,
Mhm.
that's it. That's what it is. It's like, kind of, we think we can still kind of do X, Y, and Z and do what we need done and spend less, but we know that if we don't run ads, there's no ads.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. But I see it across the board with any piece of software that brands use, that they're constantly evaluating, like, well, this app that does reviews and is well integrated into our email program for X amount of hundreds per month, or this app that will save us $20 a month, that makes for a little bit more of a disjointed experience, but saves us $20 a month. Hey, let's go save $20 a month. Um, and there's worse examples than that, even, of just more, I'd say, egregious. Hey, we're just trying to spend money, but ultimately sacrificing parts of the user experience that I don't think are worthwhile.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't have a good explanation for it.
Do you have
Why
a good
I've
reason?
seen, like, I said it sort of to be funny, like, a $50,000 ad spend, and saving whatever amount on your email program, your cost goes up $10. But, like, without exaggeration, I have seen that before,
Mhm.
where brands are wasting 50 grand a month, 25 grand a month, 100 grand a month. It's like, well, if you made this and this and this change, and you just did that today, you could probably make the same amount of your money you're making from your acquisition focused marketing, from your paid advertising, while spending 10% less, 20% less. That's tens of thousands of dollars that we're talking about, not $10 here, $20 there.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I'm a fairly frugal person in general, so I understand, like, wanting to spend less if you can spend less. But I think brand operators need to sort of reallocate their thoughts in a lot of cases on where they're trying to spend that money, because um, a lot of time ends up going into saving very little, when a little bit of time could go into saving a lot.
How do you convince them, or what does that conversation look like when you're trying to instill those beliefs onto them, I guess?
Yeah, it changes based on what we're ultimately handling. Sometimes with the right client relationship, even if we're not, let's say, running their Facebook ads, we can, take a look and go to them and say, hey, like, you're doing X, Y, and Z, and, think about maybe not doing X,
Mhm.
or doing X in a little bit of a different way. And that's going to save you some money, or it's just going to perform better, even if you're spending the same amount. Um, and some clients simply are, receptive to that, and others, aren't. I think every agency, every in-house service provider, if they're good, everybody's got a slightly different perspective on things. There are different ways to get to the same end goal, and I will try to acknowledge that to folks that we work with all the time, um, in a way to kind of, um, You asked about, like, how do we do that? How do we have that conversation? In a way, I say that to try to disarm the conversation a little bit, like, because a lot of times, like, it can become a very defensive thing, like, "Oh, well, I did this, and we're doing this because, we wanna do it
Yeah.
this way, and I did it this way, and I know this, I know that." It's like, no one's really questioning, like, anyone's knowledge. It just sometimes it can become, uh, emotional very quickly when
Mhm.
you're telling someone like, "Hey, do something a little bit differently, it might be better." Um, and then there's others that are extremely receptive to that kind of feedback, and they're looking for that guidance. The conversation becomes easier if we have a client that we're working with, certainly where we are running those services for them, and they trust our opinion and what we are bringing to the table for them. But in a lot of cases, we may not be handling all those services. So, um, you
Yeah.
know, we try to be as good of partners as we can. We try to lend our guidance and strategy where we can, with the understanding that at the end of the day, having done this hundreds of times over the last decade, not everyone's going to listen, and that's okay. I'll
Mhm.
also recognize that and our team, we're not the smartest people in the world. There's plenty of smart people in the world. There's plenty of good service providers out there. I'd like to think that we're one of them, but um, there also may be things that we're not privy to as a service provider that are impacting certain decisions that are getting made on the marketing side of the business. That um, if we are privy to, or if we are given sort of a, a look into the open door, so to speak, then we'll say, oh, you know what? Now this makes a whole lot more sense for us. So it goes not just both ways, but many different ways, depending on every situation with every client.
And you kind of you briefly mentioned this, but obviously a lot of brands are either looking to save money right now or looking at, different ways to either consolidate their tech stack or diversify their tech stack is actually I don't know, I keep saying all this conversation on like LinkedIn and everything about like the differing arguments and everyone's just biased and XYZ app provider, they want everyone to be diversified because they're not going to provide all these different services, but then Klaviyo is going to provide everything and Yotpo got rid of email and SMS. Like what I guess what's your take on this the whole conversation around like the more diversified app approach versus the consolidated app approach. What are your thoughts on that overall? Kind
Yeah,
of.
sometimes it comes down to cost, monetary cost and time cost. Um, what's it going to take to manage two different tools versus what it might take to manage one?
Mhm.
It also comes down to just effectiveness. I have been ever since their launch. Well, their very first launch, Klaviyo, started with SMS. It was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but
Yeah.
when they first launched, it was like wildly expensive. Why, like 7 cents a message? Like, there's no reason why any brand should ever sign up. And we kind of said that to clients, and kind of said that to Klaviyo directly. It's like there's this makes no sense.
Mhm.
Um, like 6 months later, they course corrected and they brought pricing aligned with others in the market. And then all of a sudden, like kind of light bulb, it's like, well, if you can get, let's say, 95% of the way there with their product versus some other really good SMS products that are on the market, and you can do it all within one platform, and then in theory, then save money. Actually, not even in theory. You can save real money, um, and not just blow through an SMS. But it's like I had a client once that on a different platform spent over $100,000 in 1 month on SMS messaging because they sent to 500,000 people at once, 3 times a day, emojis over character count, the whole deal. Um, then it to me it is a no brainer that any brand, uh, particularly like if you're in the US and you want to send text messages to folks that are in the US, uh, use Klaviyo SMS in addition to, like, if you're probably already using it for email. There is Again, there's really good service providers that are out there, other platforms, but in my view, there is no reason not to uh, consolidate, because then that opens the door functionally. Forget cost. Um, Channel affinity, email and SMS content living within inside a single flow. There is so much that also unlocks
Mhm.
that it is like a no brainer. It's ultimately why almost 100% of our clients outside of those that are locked into a contract with another provider are using Klaviyo SMS. And that's a good example. I mean, there's others too, even outside of just like Klaviyo specifically, but others when it comes to, you know, tools, let's say that do referrals, tools that do referrals only. And then, oh yeah, I want a loyalty app, but then, okay, now I have referrals and somebody can do their like give $5 to get $5. And that that referral link lives somewhere else relative to where my points values live. And it makes for a disjointed user experience. And it's like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Hmm.
Um, so it's interesting because I see a lot of different perspectives from a lot of different brands, so many different ways, where some are super conservative about the additional money that they're spending across their user experience with third-party apps, and others that are just indiscriminately like going crazy. I audited a brand earlier this year that had, this is the exact number, 115 apps installed on their storefront
I
for
was like,
similar functions they had installed and that they were paying for. I mean, this is the most egregious example I've ever seen.
mm,
Uh, Apps that they were paying for, that like 3 or 4 of them did the same thing. Now that is like gross mismanagement. You don't often
yeah.
see that bad, but very often I do see 30, 40 different apps that are installed. Some maybe they're using, some maybe they're not, but yet they're still paying for them. Um, and to me, it's kind of a simple thing. It's what's going to be easiest for you to manage, what's going to reduce your costs as best as possible while preserving the user experience and conversion. And I'm generally a fan of consolidation of like apps that can serve multiple functions,
Hmm.
as long as that function is, like I said with Klaviyo and SMS, if it's 95% of the way there, great. Um, if it's not, then think about it. Or if it's functionally there, but pricing's out of whack, and a different tool that offers a similar function is going to come in at a quarter of the price and still integrates well with that other tool, then that's probably the route you're going to go. Um, so it is all case by case, but at the same time, like I do lean consolidate where you can.
Hmm.
Um, but what those actual hard costs are do weigh in every situation.
Well, since we're bringing up SMS, obviously, the new rules out of Texas with regards to SMS. I saw you guys actually posted some information and stuff on it on your guys' website. But I guess what should brands know about it? How do you think it's going to affect Black Friday, Cyber Monday? And how should brands even evaluate whether they want to continue to do text marketing inside of Texas specifically, given all these new rules?
It is messy, to say the least. I will preface this by saying I am no lawyer. If you are a brand watching this or an agency, consult legal counsel on what the best step forward is for you. Um, we try to take as conservative a tact as possible, so that we can ensure to the degree that they are most comfortable that our clients are protected. Um, but for folks that don't know, this new law was passed in Texas. It essentially requires um, folks that send SMS messaging, brands, businesses, to register as a telemarketer in the state of Texas. And the requirements for registry include securing a $10,000 bond, which can be delivered in a few different ways. One, by like supplying the state of Texas with $10,000, or you can purchase what I've learned in my research, a surety bond. So essentially where you're buying a bond that is worth 10,000 that you're paying like $250 or so for like a 3-year term.
Okay.
Um, so the confusing thing about these exemptions is that this 2-year thing, if you've been operating with the same brand name, if you are sending to your customers, the state of Texas does not explicitly define the word customers. Does customers mean people that have bought from you before? Does customers mean people that have gone to your website and opted in to receive marketing but not bought from you before?
Classic.
There are different interpretations to customers. Some various resources that I've seen from there's some very smart people, lawyers, much smarter than me, have said that it's reasonable to interpret customers as folks that have opted into marketing, regardless of whether they've purchased. But again, the state of Texas has not explicitly defined that. So you'll see some platforms that offer SMS services take a more uh, aggressive is not really the right word, but I guess a more risky approach in terms of saying, yeah, you can send to whoever you want as long as you've gotten opt in and you're all good. Whereas others have said, you know what, if they haven't bought from you, then you know you're out of luck. Or if they haven't bought from you within the last 2 years, or you see where
Yeah,
I'm going. There's a lot of different
yeah,
scenarios that you can play out that are very confusing. And on top of that, especially if it's a little bit more of like the latter scenarios where maybe you're not supposed to message the users that haven't bought from you before. Well, every SMS tool can, in some form or fashion, allow you to create segments of users that are in the state of Texas. And I put that in air quotes because how do you define someone as being in the state of Texas? So you might have some demographic data from them based on information that they've supplied to you. You may have information related to their IP address from the point of sign up. So therefore, you can reasonably assume where they are located. You may have just simply area code in their phone number. So you can do, I'd say, a decent job of what a lot of brands are doing, just excluding sending anyone from Texas SMS messages altogether. Others that are saying we're going to exclude SMS, sending SMS to folks in Texas if they haven't bought from us. And in either scenario, you could say users within a 500-mile radius of Taylor, Texas. Why do I say Taylor, Texas? Just because as I've been going through this, Taylor, Texas is mostly centrally located, and kind of that
uh-huh.
500-mile radius covers the whole state and some parts of Oklahoma and outlying areas. But that's all well and good. But what happens when somebody who feels like being a little litigious and they're from Illinois and they're down in Austin, Texas for the weekend, and they receive a text message from you?
Yeah,
My God, they're in Texas. They just received a text and they have a right to seek whatever the numbers are, like 5,000. It's like $5,000 for any violation. And then not unlimited, but like triple the number of standard damages that a specific person can see. It's all this confusing stuff. Again, I'm no lawyer. Um, and so it gets pretty muddy really quickly. So we've had some brands larger that have just said, you know what? It's kind of crazy. It's kind of ridiculous, but let's register. Let's pay the $200 filing fee. Let's get a surety bond and let's move on. Let's not worry about it. And, that $450 or so cost, and also the time they spent, consulting with their legal team, which obviously carries a cost as well. To them, it's a drop in the bucket. It's
right.
nothing. But to others, where let's say maybe they are uh, a direct consumer, online brand only, uh, not necessarily all that large, maybe at most a couple hundred users in the state of Texas, don't necessarily have the resources to advise them properly. And we don't have the authority that I'm comfortable with to advise them properly because, again, I'll keep repeating it. I'm no lawyer.
Uh-huh.
Um, they're kind of left out in the dust. And so most have taken a more conservative route and saying like, okay, we're going to try to, as best as possible, exclude folks in the state of Texas. But the example I said before, like it's not foolproof. So I guess some clarity might come in what types of litigious lawsuits might come out. I know that Postscript and has kind of led the charge a little bit on filing a lawsuit to put a stop to the law, which is meant to have a decision sometime in October, um, or at the very least some clear interpretation of the law, which would be nice. Um, because what this has meant, I guess in spirit, is to protect uh, people in the state of Texas that don't want to get bombarded by by text spam all the
Well,
time.
and it's fair too, right? Because like I get like,
I
and
I
I'm
get
in
it so
Toronto, I
much.
get
I'm
4
not in,
a day.
yeah, I'm not in Texas, but I get, for the last 6 years, apparently I'm on some list somewhere under the name Steven, and I am a real estate agent selling properties in Hudson County, New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey, but I'm not in Hudson County. Selling properties in Hudson County that someone wants to come look at my properties. It's like,
Uh-huh.
it's not me, and like, this is nonsense. Um, so in spirit, it all makes sense. The problem is this does more harm to the businesses that we should be trying to help thrive.
Yeah.
Um, and so it really is. It's disappointing that it's happening. As best we can, the steps that we've taken with brands that we're working with at a very baseline is, like, inside of their Klaviyo accounts, for example, if they're using Klaviyo SMS, is identify users that are in the state of Texas, um, and exclude them from campaigns and flows. And the same can be done for any other
Uh-huh.
platform, essentially. And that's sort of the route, but maybe at some point in the next couple of months we get some clarity. I don't know. Um, but that's really the best that we can do right now.
Well, Ben, that's kind of all the time we have. Look, I really appreciate you doing this, man. Learned a lot. Especially I didn't know too much about the whole rulings in Texas and how to approach things. So that's really interesting. Tell people, where they can find you and how to reach out to you if they're interested in potentially working with you.
For sure. Zettlerdigital.com. It's a funny last name, Zettler. If there's anybody that is interested in potentially working with us across our core areas of service, so we can help you build your website and optimize it. We can help you run your email marketing, run your SMS marketing, and other own marketing functions. We can help you with your advertising and social media. That's what we do. We work with brands of all sizes, so I'm happy to have a conversation with folks. If anybody wants to follow me, I'm just at Ben Zettler across all major platforms. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Take care, man.
Thank you.